Home prices are back up in January. Hey everybody, this is Brad Decater with the Decater Home Team, and this is going to be the January market update where we finally got some statistics to look at to talk to you about what's going on with active, pending, solds, have some other updates like the Fed rate meeting and a few other things, mortgage rates like that. So follow along and we're going to get after it right now. Okay, so first, before we get into these statistics, I just want to chat a little bit as if we were talking. So what I've been telling people, things are changing. The first few weeks of January, we did notice a pretty significant change when compared to December. There's a lot more buyer activity out there right now. In the last 2 weeks, Derek and I and our team have made a few different offers, a few of which were consisting of multiple offer situations. So things are definitely changing. The open houses were more busy. So just in general, boots on the ground, we always feel it before it comes out in the statistics because these won't sell for, until February, maybe even March, some of them. But yeah, multiple offers, a lot more traffic at open houses, a lot more phone calls, just a lot of stuff in general. Mortgage applications are up, I've heard from my lender. So things are definitely shifting in the right direction if you're someone who's hoping for a correction in the right way. Okay, so let's hop into some statistics. What do they mean? Then again, at the end, we'll talk about what does it mean. We'll talk about the Fed rate, the mortgage rates, and then we'll get to the conclusion. Okay, so as you guys probably know, I look at both median and average price points. I usually choose one for the video. In this case, they're both pretty similar, but I want to just reiterate that prices are about the same as they were a year ago and about the same as they were in December. So median had it up a little bit, average had it down a little bit, but we're talking about like $2,000 to $5,000. So when you're talking about this, $800,000 median, it's not significant. So basically we are at the same price points now as we were a month ago in December. So about no change, 0%. And then also about 0% from January 2022 to January 2023. So yeah, we're about a flat market from year over year statistics and from month over month statistics, which is super crazy because we all know, or maybe you don't know, but we're down about 20% from the peak. So what's crazy is that January 2022 and January 2023 are the same price. They're right here on the graph. But at some point in the middle here, we were up 20%. So from spring, we went up to 20%, and then it's just been going down, 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 down. So that's where we're at right now in the real estate market. Everyone's talked about a crash and stuff. This is not a crash. It has come down 20% since the peak. So if you say it that way, it does sound like a crash. But really, year over year statistics, we're just at a normal, we're at 0% right now. So it's not that crazy. What happened in spring going up 20% in literally 4 months is unheard of. And should not, that was crazy. And so saying that we're 20% down from the peak is true. Now let's take a look at new listings, pending listings, and sold properties, which kind of gives us a lay of the land of what's going on here in the market. New listings in January, 1,793, which is significantly more, about 900 and change in December, significantly more than we had in December, but that is, again, very normal. Take a look at the graph we have here somewhere on the screen where it shows you the cycle every single year. Goes up in January, starts in spring, goes down. So this is a very normal trajectory. What's more important, what I like to look at, is what was it in last January. So same month last year, we actually had less new listings this year than we did in 2022 January. They had just a little bit over 2,000. We had just under 1,800. So very interesting because everyone keeps talking about the more inventory right now, but we actually had less new listings in January this year than we did last year. And last year was apparently a crazy low inventory environment with crazy price hikes, which is true. January was that way. But here we are in January of 2023, and we actually had less new listings come to market. Interesting. Pending sales, we had 1,668 pending listings in the month of January, which is a lot more than previously in December, which again is normal because we see more activity here in January. But what's interesting is that we almost had as many pendings as we did new listings in January, so that's great. So a sign that, again, like I said, boots on the ground, we're seeing that things are changing. There's a lot more houses going under contract than there were previously. If you compare it to last January, which again, remember, was the very beginning of a crazy market, leading up to spring last year. They had about 1,792 pendings in January last year. So we're in a pretty similar range as far as like pendings go. But remember, they had actually more new listings in January as well. So that's a pretty good sign, honestly, that things are going to go up, I think, from here right now. Sold property is not my favorite statistic, especially because it's going to take into account sold in January. It means it actually went pending and under contract in December. Totally different market even now. When we're talking about December, November, it's a different market, you guys. Things change fast every week. We're looking at what's going on. But truly, like if we're doing comps for November, December, they're actually a little bit less relevant now than they're going to be, in springtime. Those aren't going to be looked at all. So things change pretty quickly here. But anyway, for solds, we had just over 1,000. I think it was 1,034, about what we expected based on the pendings in December. So nothing really to share there. All right, months of inventory was 2.3, but I do expect that to change here soon because we had a lot more pendings go. And I think there's going to be more of a balance as far as like the months of inventory coming back down a little bit. But again, 2.3 months is not a bad thing. When we were in, an actual housing crash, it was more like 7, 8, 9, 10 months of inventory. They say 4 to 6 months is a balanced market. So technically this is still a seller's market with that amount of inventory out. But it is significantly higher than what it was when it was like, half a month, or 0.3, I believe was the lowest of months of inventory. Average days to sell was 46 days. That's up from 35. This is an interesting one. So I just said, hey, the market's heating up. This was a kind of a little bit crazier of a January. But here, this statistic says that it took a lot longer to sell in January statistics than it did in December. I'll explain this. I don't think that's true. In fact, I think it's going to change quite quickly because a lot of houses went under contract and sold here recently. A lot of them were on the market for a long time. And so those finally caught up. So a house that was on the market for 120 days, for example, and just went, pending and sold here recently, that finally now just hit the statistics of these days on market because it won't make the sold statistics until it actually sells. So anyway, houses are actually going to be taking, I think, less long to sell now that we've turned the corner, but it's showing it as more. List to sale price ratio, 97.8%, pretty similar to before, but houses still on average as of January, we're selling less than listing price. But again, in January now, boots on the ground, the last 3 offers we've made had multiple offers and a couple went over listing price. So I think that will be changing soon. Want to touch real quick on what I just said about the the changing market and multiple offers and situation. I want to make sure that I'm not scaring everyone because here's the deal. When I say multiple offers are back and it's changing, I do not mean it's like what it was last spring. That was absolutely insane, crazy. 100, 200, 300,000 over list price on $1 million was required to get the house. You also had to waive all of your contingencies, financing, appraisals, inspections. In most cases, you gave a non-refundable earnest money. That's how competitive it was at the very, very peak. That is not the case right now. For example, the last one that we did, they had 3 offers. We had got it for $7,000 above listing price. So we did need to go above listing price. We kept our inspection, but people aren't willing to do what they were last time, especially with these interest rates. So just this is outside my market update, but just talking direct. Just because there's a sign of multiple offers again now, it's not like it was before. So you don't have to do all the things that were happening before. Buyers are not willing to do that at this point. That could change. That's what's going on right now. Okay, a few other things here is going to be the Fed rating. So on Wednesday they had the meeting, so 0.25 rate increase, which was expected. So not a lot of change there, not a lot of, news, because that's what most people expected. The markets did react well to that. However, a couple days later, jobs report came out, and that, there's basically a lot more openings than they thought were going to be. So it was kind of a shock. And so actually the market reacted and dipped back down. Mortgage rates went down from the Fed meeting, then back up after the jobs rating. We have the CPI rating coming up here soon for the inflation rating. That'll be interesting to see. I believe it's next week. So as far as the economy and all that stuff goes, I feel about the same. I mean, almost every single month I say that kind of a similar thing, but I think that the Fed is going to continue to raise their rates slowly for now. So 2.25, I predicted this last one at 0.25. I think they'll do that 1 or 2 more times, probably 2 more times, maybe 3. And then I think they'll stop. They'll see what happens. And I think the inflation is going to be coming down for sure, because remember, the inflation, the housing is a super lag measure. So that one's going to come down in the next like 3 months or so. And once that catches up and we're replacing these other numbers of February, March, April of last year, because it takes the new number and replaces the last year's number. And we already know those numbers are high. So essentially, I feel very strongly that inflation, as far as the CPI rating, is going to come down. And mortgage rates typically go with the inflation rate. It's not tied to the Fed rate directly. They all are this huge, ecosystem, and they all tie together. But if inflation's coming down, then interest rates should also come down in theory. So I do believe interest rates will trickle down here a little bit. The only thing that actually in the last couple of days that I've been reading that was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, was because housing has now kind of turned a little bit of a corner, at least for now. I do think it's going to be a pretty hot spring, so pricing will probably go up. Now, if that happens, maybe that changes the outlook on the Fed, and they're like, hey, because housing is such a big portion of the CPI. It's like 30%, I believe, 33%. So if housing turns around and is kind of crazy again, maybe the Fed's like, oh shoot, we can't back off. We actually need to keep this going. This is not what we wanted. So that's the only fear I have about that. But I think in general, I think that inflation will come down. Mortgage rates will also come down, pending a crazy market in the housing. But I think that ours is unique. I don't think the national housing market, which is what they're going to look at, is going to do what we're talking about. So anyway, prediction wise, I think it's going to be market's going to go up this year, especially in spring. Probably kind of flat a little bit more in the summer and fall time. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the overall economy. So what I'm going to be paying attention to is like the unemployment rate and like all the recessionary stuff that has outside to do with real estate, the jobs report, unemployment, the tech industry, what's going on here in the tech industry. That'll be a big factor for us locally in King County. So a lot of things to look at. So if you want to stay informed, then keep watching my videos, tap subscribe, bells for notification, all that good stuff. That's all I got right now. But yeah, market's changing, things are moving. If you're someone who's selling, by the way, reach out sooner rather than later. If you want to capture this spring market, you want to start prepping right now. I love when I get these calls, but I also don't love it. Don't call the week that you want to list. A lot of people are, they say they need to sell a house and they don't want to reach out until, they're ready to sell, which is like that day. It's like, no, we got to get it prepped. So if you're a seller, reach out now. If you're a buyer, let's talk strategy and locations, and we'll get you started.